historical nonsense, and spoon-fed lies. Hey everyone! I'm saying everyone today because I see a whole bunch of newly joined infomaniacs tuning into our channel for the very first time. To all of you newbies out there watching us, hello, and welcome to Info Junkie TV. You're going to absolutely love it here. Seriously, have your fellow infomaniacs who have been with us for a while tell you all about it. You'll find that we give you all the weird, random, and best pieces of information you never knew you needed to know. Today, we will be discussing historical nonsense and spoon-fed lies. I mean, how many of these tales have been told to us, and we just go about life believing all of them? Well, let me tell you, plenty. Today, we will be talking about the top 10 most absurd misconceptions from history. Oh, and by the way, number 1 is number 1 for a good reason. See for yourself. But let us start with number 10, the witches of Salem. The witches of Salem were never burnt to death. What? Mind-blowing. I mean, my whole life is a lie. Why even bother hiding Hogwarts anyways? So how did the witches die then? Well, some were hanged, while the rest died in prison. Except for that one guy that was squished to death. Yes, you heard that right. He was squished to death. This guy's story is actually pretty interesting. So, in the trials, they tried to get information from witches about other witches to get rid of them all and live in a witch-free world. Or their bare minimum goal was to get confessions from the witches that they were actually, in fact, witches. But this dude was like, nope, I'm not doing that, nor that, nor that. He just kept quiet the whole time. Not one word spoken during the trials of Salem. So, they stuck him between two boards and put a pile of rocks on top of him. The only words that came out of the man's mouth, who was 81 years old and called Gillies Corey, by the way, was, "More weight." Pretty gangster of him, right? I mean, this man's an icon. Thing is, this went on for 3 whole days. I mean, how insane and absurd is that? So, did the man actually practice witchcraft? Because we never did get a confession out of him. We'll never know. But the one thing that's for certain is that all these people accused of witchcraft were definitely not burnt alive. I guess this was something the writers of books and movies came up with to make the story more interesting. You'll come to find that those who write down history tend to have the same notion as those writers because they like adding a little sugar and spice and everything nice to historical moments to make it more interesting and to pin it down in history how they would like it to be portrayed. Number 9, Buddha. See this photo of Buddha? Quite popular, right? I mean, we've seen statues of him and t-shirts with this picture on it. The Enlightened One. The original Enlightened One. Well, that chubby jolly old fella isn't him. That's Budai, a Chinese monk who represents Maitreya, also known as the future Buddha. On the other hand, the giant statue of the real Buddha in Thailand shows a man with a slimmer physique. Oh, and while we're at it, let me tell you that Buddha was no god of any sort. He was just a monk named Gautama, who people followed his teachings after his death. Very enlightened, but not a god. Guess we need to switch out those shirts and statues of the wrong Buddha lying around, don't we? Number 8, the vomitorium. We have been falsely led to believe that Roman nobles had a place, like specifically a place built just for this purpose, which is to basically throw up, filled with fancy buckets to go chill and, well, vomit. This place was referred to as a vomitorium. Romans are pretty weird, aren't they? No, you are wrong. They're not, because this place was not for that. It's a hallway, or to put it more correctly, a grand entrance to a coliseum through which big crowds can exit at the end of a performance. They can also be pathways for actors to enter and leave the stage. So hopefully the meaning of vomitorium in Latin is better than it is in English. Number 7, Washington. Yes, George Washington. So this man's been greatly emphasized about his virtues and the ways that reflected his greatness as the first ruler of the United States of America, and as a founding father too. One of the greatest myths told about him is the cherry tree story. You guys don't know this story? No way, come on, well, listen to this. Apparently, when Washington was just 6 years old, his father gave him an axe for his birthday, which is kind of weird on its own, but whatever. Anyways, the boy takes the axe and goes and cuts down a cherry tree. When his father sees the tree, he gets furious. He brings in his son and asks if he knows who did this, to which Washington replies bravely and honestly, "I cannot tell a lie. I did cut it with my hatchet." The father then stops being angry with his son and embraces him out of happiness with his honesty. Lovely bedtime story, right? Fake. 100% made up by one of George Washington's biographers. Number 6. The Egyptian slaves. Can you think of the most glorious slaves in history? Yes, you got that right, the Egyptian slaves. I mean, they're amazing. They built the Great Pyramids, making them one of the world's 8 wonders for just how great they are. But actually, they weren't slaves. The men who built the pyramids were workers who were paid very, very high wages. They were reputable members of the pharaonic society. They worked in 3-month shifts. And last but not least, these men, when they passed away, were buried in tombs next to the pyramids. Now, does that sound like something that would ever happen to a slave? I don't think so. Number 5, the Great Wall of China. Since we are all about greatness right now, we'll move on to the Great Wall of China. This wall is so great that it is visible from space. In fact, it's the only man-built wonder that is visible from space. Well, this too is a lie. You got that right. The wall is approximately 30 meters thick, and being in space far away from, 100 kilometers up makes it absolutely impossible for you to see it from up there. I mean, if that were to be true, there are many other much bigger man-built objects, such as the Great Pyramids. Number 4, Germany's autobahn. Ready for a truly great misconception? No, this isn't the one I want you on your toes for. So have you heard of Germany's autobahn? Of course you have. Everyone has. The 14-mile highway is legendary. You know who created it? Hitler, right? Nope. Only the first section was completed of the highway during Hitler's reign, but the plan was there long before him. But to give the man some credit, he expanded it further to new territory that initially was not in the plan. Still not enough for us to say he built it. Number 3, Mussolini's trains. We can't mention Hitler without bringing up his old buddy Mussolini. There's this thought going around that Mussolini put the trains in order and made all of the trains run right on time. The great Mussolini did not make the trains run on time. The man was not a clock nor a magician, just a fascist. Besides, most of Italy's infrastructure was there anyways, and it was repaired long before his rise to power in 1922. Even then, the trains weren't nearly as punctual as you might think they were. Number 2, Iron Maidens. We're not talking about the band here. You ever see these before? Yeah, they're famous torture devices that were used during the medieval times. These are Iron Maidens, devices created for the sole purpose of torturing others. How smart of these men to think of standing coffins with sharp things that poke you stuck at the back of the door. Like, who in their spare time would think, you know what this world is missing? Iron Maidens. We need better ways to torture people. Well, excuse me for getting a bit bugged by this, but I mean, there's not one story that has been said today that makes actual sense. As archaeologists were exploring during an expedition, they once found a metal coffin with sharp spikes next to it. They guessed that this must have been the way with which people were tortured, and no one questioned the man who came up with that, at all. Okay, here we go. The one you have been waiting for. Number 1, Einstein. Here we bring you the most interesting historical misconception of all. Have you ever hated math? Ever failed math? Yeah, me too. Ever thought, well, wow, I'm a little Einstein, because he too failed math? And the man was a genius. Well, guess what? He never did. Of course he didn't. This is Einstein we're talking about. The man skipped years due to how smart he was. He took math that kids his age didn't take. He came up with all the basic theories that we still use today. So how could he have failed math? It's not possible, obviously. No surprises there. Feels like we sort of came up with this one and just kept telling it and passing it from one generation to the next to give those who fail an excuse, which is totally the opposite of what we should be doing. Thank you, Infomaniacs, for tuning in and watching our channel, Junkie TV. We hope you enjoyed learning about 10 of the greatest historical misconceptions of all time. So which of them did you believe as a kid? Which of them did you think was true up until you watched this video today? Tell us what you think in the comments. We'd love to know. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification button if you want to see more of these mind-blowing videos. Stay safe, Infomaniacs, and we'll see you real soon.